You're tuning into the Journey to Your Best Self podcast, where we explore the past holistic well-being, personal growth, and living a fulfilling life. Each episode, we bring you insightful conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories to help you integrate your mind, body, and spirit on your journey to becoming your best self. Let's dive in and embark on this journey together. Welcome back to the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian O'Neill, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, clinical hypnotherapist, certified life coach, yoga instructor, and my sister, Tara O'Neill. Hello, Tara.
Hello, hello, hello.
Today, we are very, very excited to be difficult man to get on during this book tour, but we're very, very excited to be joined by author, artist, poet, a man truly of the arts, Inam Inamullah. We're really excited to delve into his book entitled The Whispers of the Flight and learn a little bit about how Sufism can really be a vehicle for those looking to journey to self-discovery and transformation, a topic and a value and an overall direction that at Your One Self, we like to guide our followers and audience to finding their self-discovery and self-actualization. So I think that a lot of what we're going to discuss today is we're going to really connect with those watching and listening. So without any further ado, Inam, welcome aboard.
I'm delighted to be on your show. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. I just wanted to give a little bit of a background and primer for the
Sure.
uninitiated, right? For those who may be a little bit unfamiliar with the book and the influence, because you speak about
Yes.
often when I was doing a little bit of research, the Conference of the Birds, right?
That's correct.
Farid al-Din Attar. And can you give a little bit about kind of how that helped inspire you in writing this book? Maybe a little summarize for the audience what that was about, and how you brought it, now to 2024 readers.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start with a little bit of the story, my personal story with this. I had a knee replacement surgery done 2 years ago. And immediately after the surgery, I developed something what they call in the medical field DVT, which is basically blood clots after the surgery, and can be extremely dangerous. If it gets dislodged and gets to your heart or lung, then we pretty much have 10 or 15 minutes. So I was put on heavy blood thinners. I was told not to move too much for a few weeks, and I was on my bed with lots of pain. I read a lot. Because I have to read a lot to stay connected with my passion. And my son brought me a gift of a book, a very large book, extremely pretty book. It was a lot of illustrations in it, and it was actually an English translation of a 900-year-old Persian poem written by Fariduddin Attar called, in English, it's called Conference of the Birds. That one single poem, which is 4,600 verses long, originally has been translated into 80 different languages. And it's one of the most famous poems in the world, actually. And Attar was one of the teachers of Rumi. So when Rumi was 10 to 12 years old, he spent a few days with Attar learning how to write what they call in Persia the form of poetry called musaddas, which is basically the same style that Rumi adopted to write all his poems after that. So he learned the basics of that kind of genre from Attar. And when I read the poem or the translation of it, it was not a complete 4,600 verse translation, but a summary of it. I was completely blown away with the concepts in the poem and in that book. So I decided to learn more and get myself educated more. I was lucky to find a professor of Persian language who specialized in old poetry in Persian language, and she was able to. So I had Zoom sessions very similar to what we are having right now, twice a week with her for 6 months. So I basically was able to finish up the whole poem with her giving me an explanation from Persian to English from my understanding and walking me through the whole poem. When I was done with that understanding and having all that knowledge from her, I said, what to do now? I mean, I have all this thing that I've learned, and I don't know what to do with it. So if I had written another poetic translation, which I have done in the past, you know, it wouldn't have been unique at all because so many people have done it in so many different languages. And it's very difficult read. It's not an easy read. It's not for everyone. So I decided to write a novel um, in such a way, in easy terms, easy style that people are accustomed to in the Western world. And although utilize the same theories, the same philosophies explained in the poem, and and take a group of people from location A to their destination and giving them the same challenges, what the conference of the birds talked about, the birds facing the challenges and reaching their destiny. Now, in the original poem, it's a story of birds where they get together and they say that every nation has a king. We don't have a king. So the hoopoe bird, which is in Abrahamic religion, is considered to be like a messenger bird, and steps forward and says, "No, we have a king too, and I can take you to that king." And the birds decide to follow. And he says that we're going to cross 7 different valleys, and of course these are metaphorical valleys, and you have to cross, and at each level you have to leave some negativities in your personalities behind, such as ego, such as different things that we accumulate, materialism and stuff like that. So there is first valley is valley of love, then the valley of quest, ultimately valley of annihilation. And the whole concept is to merge and become the single body with the universe. Because the concept of Sufism is what we call in Arabic languages Wahdatul Wujud, or in English, it's basically cosmic unity, that we are all one and we're all part of one entity. And we just have to find our own path to meet that destiny of ours, to meet that universality, and so that how to become one basically with the universe. So what I did was I used 2 young Americans out of New York, and the having interest in trekking, in hiking, and I take them to Morocco, because Morocco has a series of mountains called Atlas Mountains, and it also has 7 peaks, 7 valleys, and they face similar challenges. And they have a sage, they have a leader who guides them through utilizing the same theories and same parables that Hoopo uses in the Conference of the Birds, and takes them from step one to the final stage. And that's the summary of the book, if you may.
Yeah, there's a lot definitely to go on there. That's really exciting, and it's nice to make things that maybe are dated or older, and maybe going to open it to a wider audience with making it in some way to a modern audience. Did you find that, a lot of the teachings, right, from the Conference of the Birds, right, nearly 1,000 years ago, as you said, is there a resurrection? Is there a thirst for, are you seeing people that are interested? There's like a void that people are looking to. Have you felt that, discussed that with some readers and reviewers, and people are lacking, and then they've been exposed to this? Is there a widespread need for this journey?
In my literary circles, when I'm a playwright too, and I meet with a lot of people in producing and directing plays. I'm a poet too, so we have multiple poetic sessions and book readings and stuff like that. So I meet a lot of people who have interest in literature, and it's my understanding that the number one read poet and actually a writer in the Western world is Rumi. And one must wonder, why is that case? Because there is an extreme thirst, extreme need for connecting with spirituality in the Western world. And I think there is much more um, thirst in the Western world these days than I see in the Eastern world. I travel a lot too. I don't see the same kind of thirst anymore that I used to see 30 years ago in the Eastern world, in those countries. But I see a much bigger need for something like that, or a desire, or people are interested in talking about spirituality in the Western world. So, and Rumi is a proof of that. That why millions and millions of books are sold on because what Rumi did was that he took a very sophisticated, difficult philosophy and made it so simple for everybody to understand that it became very easy for everybody in the Western world to be able to follow and practice. Now, another good example, if you move a little bit away from Sufism, is a practice of yoga, for example. It is just much more prevalent and practiced now in the Western world than in the Eastern world. And so all these things indicate heavily to anyone who's observing that there is a significant demand for connecting with the spiritual world in the Western world these days than previously I have noticed. So I think my book basically follows the same steps as Coleman Barks, for example, translated Rumi's poetry. And even if you read Alchemist from Paulo Coelho's, which is pretty much spirituality, throughout the book, and in becoming, a bestseller in pretty much every indicator, is also an indication that, why people are seeking and people are actually aggressively looking to absorb this kind of information. So yes, absolutely.
And what's it? Well, how? All right. What's some of the pushback that you get, and how do you counter it? Like you said, Attar from the former Persian Empire, right? So, but a lot of these messages are lost in maybe the Middle East or modern day Iran, where right the Persian Empire was. And the same, is it that the divine, like like the ultimate goal was to reach the divine, right? That connection of the universe that you said. Is it that more traditional religious leaders, both in the Middle East and in Christianity as well, are seeing that as too far away from the traditional Abrahamic God? Is that they can't see those as one and the same or connected? Is that why there's a little bit of resistance to some people? And how would you answer their hesitation to opening themselves up to the Attar poem and then Whispers of the Flight as well?
I'll be very honest, I have not experienced any resistance of any kind to this book, or even before this book when I talked about the subject matter of Sufism. Now, people aren't aware of it as much as they're aware of other spiritual practices like yoga, for example. Everybody knows about that because it has been practiced for the last 50, 60 years in the Western
Sure.
world. Sufism is kind of new. Definitely stems through Islamic teachings. There is no doubt about that, but it is not the fundamental coaching of basic Islamic teachings. It actually kind of deviates from that and becomes very generic in nature and invites everyone, regardless of their religious belief, uh, regardless even if they have believe in God or not, but kind of based on my information, more than 90% of the people actually have a belief in some kind of a superpower, some kind of a divine out there power that they would like to connect to, whether they believe in any formal organized religion or not. So what Sufism does is that it actually provides a path and actually a number of practices, such as you may have seen whirling dervishes, and they dance in a specific manner, they chant in a specific manner. They have one hand up out there towards the divine, and divine may be different for different people. It's perfectly okay as per Sufism or as per the Athar's teachings or as per Rumi's teaching that you may believe in whatever divine power that you may want to believe in. Is perfectly acceptable. And however, you receive the inspiration, you receive the guidance from that, the love from that entity, and you give it to the world. That's why their one hand is up and one hand is down, because they're receiving from one hand and giving away to the world at large, or to the universe, if you may, from the other hand. So the Sufism is kind of a practice that I would actually call, not if not everybody else, is kind of a non-denomination, because it is something that people can easily practice, regardless of what religious background they come from. It has multiple different meditation techniques, and it connects you to the high power that you believe in, and it gives you, and to be very honest, the basic Sufi belief that I earlier talked about, the cosmic unity, is uh, is also present in other religions. It's present in Judaism. It used to be practiced heavily in Christianity also. The concept of one body in Christianity is nothing but the same thing, the cosmic unity, basically. And so pretty much all the religions and of the past also practiced they also had a spiritual group within the main practicing group that followed that path, actually. Now, in the words of my friend Sholay, she stated that what Attar's teachings are like, that we are all, let's consider destiny as an ocean, and we are all moving towards that. None of us are going to remain alive forever, right? We all have to go and meet someone that we believe in. And she said that's an ocean, just assume that, and a drop of water in a river is flowing to meet that ocean. And during that travel from one location to the ocean, that drop of water goes through an inner cleansing process. How to get rid of ego, how to get rid of all the bad habits, all do not judge other people, and when it reaches the ocean, it reaches as a pure drop of water. And the ocean says, come on, and it accepts the drop of water. That drop of water becomes part of the ocean, and the ocean becomes part of that drop. As Rumi said, that we are part of the divine, and divine is part of us. So it's very similar approach, and that drop of water moves with the ocean all throughout the ocean. The other drop of water, going in the same direction, trying to meet the destiny, stops at every location, judgment calls on everybody else, tells everyone how wrong they are and what they are doing, reaches the ocean. Ocean says, come on. The ocean welcomes everyone, and it reaches and drops like a pebble at the bottom of the ocean, never to be able to float with the ocean or be part of the ocean. So that's the difference between two methodologies, that Sufism teaches you how to go through an inner cleansing process, and it has different methods. Even within Sufism, you have, oh my God, 100 different schools of thoughts, and it depends what you follow, or you mix it up based on what you like and what you want to practice. But at the end of the day, it's the cosmic unity, basically.
Can you talk? You mentioned yoga a couple times. Tara, I know you want to get in here, but this will connect you, I think, excellently. You mentioned a couple times yoga as a comparative, journey, or non-traditional way that people use to travel to self-discovery and transform their lives. A vehicle.
Yeah.
What about meditation and contemplation, the practice of that within Sufism and just within your journey to self-discovery? What's the importance, if there is one, of quiet thinking, self-reflection? Can you speak to that?
So, in the main difference between standard yoga out there and meditation techniques used in Sufism primarily is and Tara can correct me if I'm wrong, is that in traditional yoga practices or meditation, you're supposed to focus on nothing. You're supposed to focus, try to clean up your mind and not having any specific thought, or, and try to automatically universe reach to you versus you reaching out to the universe. That's my understanding of it. But in practices of Sufism, it's a little different. That instead of having no specific thought in your mind while you're going through the meditation process, it actually has guidelines for you to think and focus on to reach to your destiny. For example, um, uh, the divine has multiple attributes. For example, the divine is merciful. So uh, uh, Sufism techniques, for example, one of the techniques is that you take a beats like this and say merciful 1,000 times a day. Whenever you have few minutes available, you continue to do that, and that's your meditation. But again, you're calling a certain quality of divine while doing that. So unlike yoga, which is when it tries to clear up your mind with all the thoughts, it actually tells you to adopt a thought and basically reach out to that thought, to the ultimate power through that thought process, that you are the most merciful. You are the most merciful, and you seek mercy, and you seek mercy not only for yourself, but seek mercy in your heart for all the living beings, or even the whole planets in the universe in your heart. So that's the difference that I have noticed between the practices of meditation in Sufism versus traditional yoga. And Tara can definitely correct me.
Thank you so much for all of this wonderful information, wisdom. I love your artistic way of so eloquently articulating some things that are very abstract. So it's really beautiful, and I'm in awe. So I'm still processing. Though, yeah, I would agree with you that there is a little bit less of a mantra meditation. There is chanting in yoga, but I think similarly, we are more accepting of there is no right or wrong way to get there, right? We're all
Correct.
going to the same place. So I really do enjoy that about a lot of these traditions. I'm curious if how you use this in your life coaching practice. So I incorporate a lot of holistic mind, body, spirit because I do think it's important. They're so interconnected, or you can't just take one away. So I'm curious, do you use some of the things described in the book? Do you use holistic methods in your life coaching process?
So just to give you a little bit of background, my life coaching journey started informally, without getting certified, without having to actually have any knowledge of it as to how to conduct myself in that manner, in that position, in that posture, because I got involved with a couple of charities locally here in Atlanta area, working with the underprivileged communities, refugee communities, and all that. There were a lot of single moms, a lot of kids who were needing help, and I started giving my time just guiding them, basic common sense guidance, working on their self-esteem, uh, how to lift them up primarily so that they don't get involved with all the wrong stuff they were getting involved or have been getting involved, and having belief in themselves that they can do better. And so that's how I started basically. And I ended up founding a charity here in Atlanta area 14 years ago. Actually, it's called the Glitter of Hope Foundation. It's one of the most active charities in some parts of Atlanta area these days. Now it's joined by multiple groups. So we have lots of volunteers. It's 100% volunteer based. We have no overhead. Nobody gets paid for anything. And we try to help out, primarily focusing on single mothers and children, and also the refugee community that's coming in from 30 different countries. So that's how it all started for me. And I used to do a radio program at that time too for a South Asian community here, and people used to call and get, ask for advice, and I used to get involved, and I used to study a little bit for that. And then, a couple of years ago, everybody started saying this, man, you need to do this professional. You need to do this professionally. You have done this long term. So I still do this pro bono, going in the field and spending a lot of time with them. But I only take 2 clients a day maximum for my professional side of it, which the name of the company is Elevate Life. And so that's the background, how I got involved with it. And of course, I got certified before I started doing all that, recently. It's last 2 years or so. Now, when I work with these people, I realize that their spiritual beliefs, you know, especially if they do have one, if they do come back with some, let's say, religious background, whatever the religion may be, if they're Buddhist or Hindus or Muslims or Christians or whatever beliefs they have, is a good instrument, is a powerful instrument actually to give them hope, because they already have a foundation established to have certain beliefs in their system. So I always tried to invoke that. I always tried to tell them that you have someone that you believe in that can solve your issues. So you should definitely reach out to that superpower, that reach out to that entity that can actually help. And I would guide them how to reach out and come out with steps, basically, and using nothing but common sense or few books that I may have written, or while getting certified, learn some techniques and all that. As far as Sufi teachings are concerned, that's, I'm gonna say, is for, especially for people who are coming from real poor background in terms of they just relocated to this country. First, these refugees, when they come in, for example, single moms, they don't speak a single word of English. They've been living in Kenya, for example, for 10 years in a refugee camp. The kids have never been to school. And she comes with 6 kids, and the oldest is 15-year-old. And the county school system here looks at them and say, 15-year-old kid should go to 8th grade. And they put that kid in the 8th grade. And that kid, keep in mind, has never been to school in his life. So what used to happen was that kid used to end up on the streets, because that kid used to find so difficult to be able to stay in the school, to be able to understand English language, science, mathematics, and all that stuff. So that's where we saw the need to get involved and started after school programs, to expedited programs for them to be able to reach to a level where they can sustain the schools. At the same time, giving the mothers English language training them how to learn to drive, and then finding them jobs and buying them cars to be able to drive to their jobs, standing up on their feet, basically. So in this process, it is difficult to utilize the traditional Sufi methods, but traditional spirituality teachings, yes, of course, absolutely. I use all the time. Now, when a general public, as clients come to me, I have started to use, since I was exposed to the idea of this poem and also other areas of Sufism, into the practice. And they're all non-denomination techniques. And I've learned a little bit about yoga, not a whole lot. So I definitely invite them to get involved with that. Overall thing is that the meditation, different forms, exercises in different forms, is a huge help get rid of depression, anxiety, give them the self-esteem they're looking for. And when we talk about exercise, for example, some people are not into going to the gym, for example, or go out for a run, and depending on their health situation and all that. But everybody's up for dancing, for example. You can do that alone, you're in front of your favorite music. So I encourage them to go into that mode and meditate in that mode, while you're listening to whoever you like to listen to, and dance the way you like to dance to. But during that process, okay, don't use your body only, but at that time you can reach out to a higher power, because you are happy, your blood is moving fast, your body is cooperating with your mind. That's a perfect time to reach out. So I definitely include all that into my teachings. And by the way, I'm a big follower of Jose Silva also, and I'm very much familiar with Silva method, and I used to practice a whole lot. I still practice a little bit. And I also combine those kinds of techniques that you call holistic techniques in my life coaching, even to the level of um, people who are anxious to the level of that they're afraid of everyone and having a hard time sleeping, for example, suggesting that you should use weighted blankets, that gives them the level of support. And I'll be very honest, I also use one, so things
Gotta
like
practice
that.
what you preach, right?
Absolutely. And it helps me a whole lot. I've been sleeping much better since I started using that.
Yeah,
Long
it's
answer to your question. I'm sorry.
No, it was
no,
absolutely perfect, and I
it was.
think it is you're a healer, whether you call yourself that or not. So it feels as though intuitively you know what your client needs, and the beauty of it is you do have the practical and as well as the spiritual to incorporate. And I love what you said about the dancing, and we sometimes will think, oh, I have to go to the gym, or I have to do this workout, or I have to do this a certain way, or I have to sit in this certain meditation. But meditation could be anything where we're not over analyzing and ruminating in our mind. So if we're dancing, we are getting to that higher vibe. We are able to connect to those beautiful frequencies. So that was a wonderful explanation. Thank you so much.
I don't know what your I may be deviating a little bit, but I want to learn from you too. So I'm asking this question. I don't know what different experience you have in teaching yoga, but I spent 6 months in India with a guru actually, and when I was learning the yoga techniques in the beginning, and the guru kept on telling me that you have come from America. America thinks that yoga is different physical positions. It's different mental positions. Keep that in mind. It's not physics. The physique comes secondary. First is the mind you got to focus on. So that's how I was taught,
Yeah.
and that's what I try to preach.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really was what the asana or the physical part of yoga was to sit for meditation for longer periods of time.
Right.
So that there is definitely a lot of truth to, I also was taught the same.
Right.
One of the things you mentioned, you're very humble. You spent 6 months studying it, so I'm sure that you have a lot of experience and knowledge. But one thing, just to add to your dancing, we do laughing yoga, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. It's very easy. It's something we can all do. You brings out the childlike feel of you, and you get out of your own way. So I don't
It's
know if you got to experience that, but I would encourage people to do that.
It's so beautiful what you just said, and I totally agree with that. Now, I have used laughing instructions, but what I do almost to every client of mine, literally every client of mine, is that I tell them that you have to intentionally smile at least 50 times a day.
Wow.
And
Okay, I'm going to
don't
use
don't do
that.
it don't do it in 1 hour and be done
Right.
with. Spread that out throughout the day, whether you're smiling to someone else or to yourself alone in a room. It does not matter, but you have to smile 50 times a day minimum. And I feel people come back to me and they say, just alone practicing that has made a huge difference in their life. They have started to look at things and people differently just after practicing a month or so of just smiling 50 times a day.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. I wrote that down. I'm gonna do that for myself, and then I'm gonna make my clients do it. And it does tie into the nervous system in the sense of when we
Yes,
smile, we are telling other people that we're safe and we're welcoming, and that's contagious. That vibe is spread, and then you get it back. So I know there's a lot of neurochemicals going on, but I think that's a wonderful thing that anyone can do, right? We can all smile.
exactly. And I read a lot, as I mentioned. I'm one more trend that I'm seeing happening in the Western world is that the science is now moving more and more towards spirituality, and they're trying to find this connection that they used to call voodoo science 20 years ago or 30 years ago. I mean, even institutes like Harvard and Stanford's have now full-time PhDs working on exploring the possibility that there is actually science behind these spiritual methods that basically can take care of a lot of issues that traditional science cannot. So I'm very happy and pleased with that. That finally that the spiritual world and the scientific world is almost combining. And finding new revelations actually. And it's very similar. I use this analogy when I give talks. I'm a polio patient, so I also talk on behalf of UNICEF and Bill and Linda Gates Foundation and Rotary Club to raise awareness and funds for polio eradication. And there's only 2 or 3 countries left in the world now. Hopefully, in the next 5 years, we'll take care of that. But I always compare that the two types of physics now, right? It used to be all Newtonian physics in the past, and now you have this subatomic level quantum physics that people used to make fun of 40, 50 years ago. And they are discovering that those Newtonian laws don't apply at subatomic level, and it's a completely different set of laws, and everything is in motion. And they are discovering new laws that basically follow at that level, which have no correlation, by the way, with the basic other laws that we see at a molecular level and bigger level. And now they are seeing the relationship between the two. And there has been many scientific experiments that can prove that, if you take, subatomic materials, 2 different parts of the world, and move one, then the other moves automatically. So we are all going back to your question of cosmic unity, that we are all connected. We just have to we just have to find the right channel, basically.
Yeah, you definitely um, can connect with that because youroneself.com, taraoneal.com, ancient wisdom, modern wellness is one of our taglines. So there's definitely something that we try to bring to the audience, and that it's exciting that quantum physics, it's counterintuitive in a way because you think physics, a hard science, you know, um, totally kind of would deviate from the humanities and from, but in fact things are coming together, so
Exactly.
it's an amazing development for sure. I wanted to step outside,
Sure.
literally and figuratively, because there is something about nature, and the body, the hiking, the trekking, the journey to Morocco. You said from New York City. Zach and Professor Ali, right? They went to North Africa to, you know, scale these mountains and surpass the valleys, the proverbial 7 valleys, and the literal ones out there. And you're in a big sprawling city. Tell us the importance of getting out, exercising, getting out into nature, traveling. How that's part of the self-discovery. Maybe takes you to a closer place to the divine for some that maybe struggle to do it, in an office working 40, 50 more hours a week, going just kind of through the rat race and the motions and keeping up with the Joneses and not getting outside and experiencing the wide world. How does that help in self-actualization journey and transformation, and what can people do to incorporate it into their lives?
One of the good things that has come out of this COVID experience is that people have realized the true value of experiences versus toys. And there is a very distinct transformation in the Western world, especially as to how they're spending the money these days. People are buying fewer fancy cars. They're buying fewer bigger houses. They're absolutely not buying expensive furniture. Uh, what they are doing a lot more is spending a lot more money on travel. They're spending a lot more money on going on vacations with family and friends, discovering new things that they wanted to discover. And so the COVID actually introduced this concept that we have been entangled with these toys world for a very long time, and let's get out and do something different, because we were hunkered down inside our houses and buildings for such a long time. So that's a very good thing happened as a result of, unfortunately, a pandemic, but that was one of the good outcomes. Now, I think it's an extremely important to get out and be in the nature, number one, and meet with people who are not like you. When say not like you is physically not like you, spiritually not like you, living style wise not like you, because we learn from each other. We learn from each other, and there is, we have, all of us, including me, have a little bit of xenophobia in our hearts, and because we are all afraid of other kinds of people. And unless we get out of our houses and meet other kinds of people, other kinds of cultures, other kinds of civilizations, other religions, other practices, we will never be able to get the true appreciation of humanity. And I think that also will build up the cosmic unity that we have been talking about for the last few minutes or so. So it's extremely important. Now, same idea and same concept hit me long time ago. I was trained as an artist as a child in portraits. I used to do pencil sketches and charcoal sketches on paper. That's how I was trained. And if you give me a minute, I'll tell you my story. Is that I was, as I mentioned to you, that I was born and got infected with polio in my right leg, and before I turned one. And when I started to walk at the age of maybe 2.5 or something, my right foot was at a 45-degree angle and my right knee was 15-degree angle. And it was difficult to walk as a child, but when I turned 5 years old, I had to go to a school like every other child because mentally I was okay. And the kids can be extremely difficult to a child who is physically so different and has a handicap, very visual handicap. And I used to walk very difficult in a difficult manner. I was not able to take part in sports. And that's when my art teacher noticed that when I was in all boys school, and when my art teacher noticed that this one kid is sitting in the corner, sad, depressed, while all other kids are out playing. So she took me to the art room and she said, "Well, would you like to learn art from me?" I said, Hey, absolutely, because somebody paid attention to me. And I had no idea, to be very honest, at that age level, what art meant, but she gave me a pencil and a paper and she started working with me on a daily basis. This lasted 5 days a week for 5 years. 5 years. By the time I turned 10 years old, I was doing portraits like any other professional artist would do. And I can never repay her back, and then I had to change the school because I was turned 10. I had to go to the middle school and all that. But I kept in contact with her until she passed away 7 years ago. And so that's how I picked up the art in the beginning. And throughout my life, I had my couple of surgeries done to the leg. They fixed a majority of my problem. I still have a limp. I still walk with a limp. I can do sports now, but I cannot do like an average person would do. Okay, I still have limitations. But I was exposed to the most beautiful birch trees in the world when I used to travel in my first job after graduation to Eastern Europe, when I used to go to Finland and Russia and all those countries, and I saw the true beauty and colors of the birch trees in the world. And I said, forget about portraits, I want to paint this. I want to, start painting these. And that's when I was for the first time, exposed to oil paints and canvases and all that. And I started painting these beautiful trees. And today I'm known as the tree artist in the world. That's how a bunch of countries call me tree artist, because that's landscapes is my genre. Because when you become a professional artist, you have to stay with one theme. You can't do everything else. I still do other stuff for my family and friends, but for professional world, I stay with one theme, which is landscapes. So one big reason why I started doing landscape was exactly what you mentioned, is that I used to be in my basement painting, but my imagination used to take me to these jungles, these trees, these birch trees, and I used to feel the wind coming on my face. I used to feel the smell of the birch trees bark. I used to see the colors in reality, and that's what I used to, transform onto the canvas. So I started learning the value of nature, the value of what this world has to offer to us, and our responsibility to protect all that too. And that's been 30, 35 years ago. And for the last 21 years ago or so, I've left all my other professions. I was in telecom and started doing full-time art, and I completely focus on the nature.
Excellent. Yeah, that's beautiful. And you could feel, how um that connection to the divine is in nature just by your words and how you
Absolutely.
see it in everything that's out there. We always like to give our audience members some guidance, and you've given them so much to work with here. A couple of things that I want to talk about. I mean, this is a tough one, I think. You've been to so many places, you've met so many people. Atlanta, you mentioned Northern Europe, India. Um, you must have, I'm assuming you chose Morocco because you had some familiarity with that area maybe of the world. Read authors from Persia and everywhere, and you're meeting all different kinds of people. You have refugees that you've worked with, and definitely the socioeconomic change, right? I mean, the people that are in those camps, right, from Somalia and South Sudan and other places, some of them have been there for years, so
Mhm.
it's just really a challenge. How are you so open? And you mentioned a little bit about we all have many of us because of culture and family and tradition. And there's an evolutionary biological element to it, like a tribalism that a lot of
Mhm.
people have. And it comes to the surface, sometimes online and in modern day, right? How do you overcome that? How do you see, is it part of your spiritual philosophy that we're all connected? How do you overcome it? How do you help people to overcome it? Because when you're working with people, I'm assuming relationship building is something you try to do. So, how do you impress upon the people that you're working with to see others the way you do?
So when especially in my life coaching and especially when I deal with people who are fresh refugees in Atlanta area, these two communities, my biggest thing is to tell them to unlearn what you have learned in your life. That's the first thing I try to teach, And I spend, I would say, a good 20% of my initial, let's say if I spend 100 hours with someone, I spend 20 hours just on that topic. Is that you gotta unlearn. Unless you unlearn, and ready to challenge your core beliefs, whether they're tribal based or they're religious based or they're, traditions based, you will not be able to find the reality. And our responsibility is to find the reality. Our responsibility is not to follow the traditions, We have to find this. We are truth seekers. We are not the followers of a certain theory of a philosophy, And that's what I try to focus first. First 20% of my time is literally spent on them, making sure that they are with me on this concept before I move forward, and then we go into other areas of teaching that, if we start calling other people wrong or misguided, then the people who are wrong and misguided are us, basically. I mean, that's the truth. There is logic, there is wisdom behind every theory. You don't have to believe in the whole system of that theory, but if you can pick up the pearls, if you pick up the diamonds from each theory and make your own basket of these valuable gems, then you have a collection of gems from so many different sources. And at the end of the day, you will be the biggest beneficiary of all the sources that this divine has provided us. This planet has provided us, this universe has provided us. So I always try to tell them is to, sometimes I deal with a lot of Muslim refugees coming in from Somalia and Sudan and other countries, I literally force them to go with me to churches and synagogue and listen to their lectures too. I make them listen to Buddhist. I take them to my nearby Buddhist cemetery, and I ask them to listen to what they have to say too. So they get exposed to different cultures, different ideas, and they realize that at the end of the day, nobody's bad. Everybody is good. Everybody's trying to teach the right things. We have different methods, but our destination is the same. And they start valuing, and that's why I do get involved with interfaith a lot. And my focus of interfaith is the similarities in our belief systems, not necessarily how we differ from each other. And that goes a long way because people realize it, that how valuable all this is. So all these techniques are very useful, but the key thing, first thing, is to unlearn, what we have been taught by our societies, but our parents in many cases, our families, our traditions, our religion, and all that, and start fresh.
That's amazing. Thank you for so nicely expressing that in ways I think most people can understand. Just to rewind a little, you said you could never repay that teacher. I would say that you are repaying that teacher by paying it forward to the people that you're helping. So thank you very
Well,
much
thank you
for
for
all
that
the work
comment.
that you do. And I will also, to link two of the things that you said, find other people that are not like you. Go to places that are not like the places you're used to. And then find the similarities, right? So it's such a beautiful message, right? Go explore what you don't know and then link. What do we have in common? And you'd be surprised, right? How much we do have in common. So I love the way that you shared that. I have one more question. I mean, I could
Sure.
ask you questions all day long,
No,
so
would
we'll
love
have to
to.
do this again. But do you have a book that inspired you? I know I'm sure you've read a lot of books. Aside from your book, can you give our listeners one for them to begin or to continue their journey?
Um, a a bunch of books that I really liked, and from those books, I have learned a lot. There are books that you find fascinating to read, but you may not learn a whole lot from them. But there are books that you learn a lot from, and you apply those techniques and those that knowledge into, I'm a big fan of Paulo Coelho's books. Alchemist is one of them, but I also loved the 40 Rules of Love by Al-Falaq, and that was a beautiful book too, summarizing the Sufi methodology again in a different manner, you know, actually in a much simpler manner than my own book. And it's easy to follow and small chapters, easy to read, very easy English, and it's for everyone. So I do get impressed by short stories a whole lot, and versus I end up writing a novel myself, although I don't read novels. And my purpose of writing the novel was that how do I take this, a message which is very difficult to explain. If I end up writing a philosophical book also, then I don't know how many people are going to read and how many people are going to appreciate it. So a novel in simple words where you bring in characters from today's world, and embed them into the story in such a way that people can follow their story at the same time get the message. That was the purpose of me writing a novel. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up doing another novel ever, but that was my purpose. So uh, those two books definitely come to my mind that I would highly recommend people. And there are a lot of bunch of self-help books that I admire, and uh, I do like the readings of as I mentioned, Jose Silva, who was actually not a very educated man, but his institution, his daughter has written a few books, and I do find those self-help books a lot more interesting, that has a touch of a spirituality to it, that takes you away from basic common science and take you a little bit outside the box to be able to think a little bit differently. And so that's what I would suggest.
Thank you so much. It's been a
Absolutely.
pleasure. Yes.
Yes. And that was a great caveat there about your book recommendations. I wanted to ask something a little bit practical and pragmatic that I wasn't really planning, but just because of your breadth of your experience and all the work you've been doing, the traveling, the volunteering, the family, where do you find, to go to kind of a practical recommendation for our listeners, where do you find the time to get it all done? And is there a daily routine, ritual practice that you utilize every day so you make sure you're making the most of your 24 hours?
Well, my father used to say, he was a professor, by the way, PhD. He used to say that a busy man can find the time to do things all the time, but a lazy man can never find the time to do anything. So I think multitasking has been my forte for a very long time, and um, it keeps me occupied, and I love that. Um, Now, routine, um, I really, these days, especially, I used to be much more organized in terms of my schedules and timings and all that. I am 63 now, and I have reduced the amount of work that I used to do uh, because of health reasons, because of the fact that whatever I like to produce now, I focus more so on quality than anything else, and quality, as you know, takes more time. So my passions are definitely playwright. I'm kind of addicted to stage, and I definitely like to. I used to do 3 plays a year. Now I'm doing only one, and but I read a lot too, and I use reading as a form of meditation too, and but there is one more practice that probably Tara might be very, very well aware of, is that there is a lot of gurus have taught that there's a time around 4 o'clock in the morning that if you get up, and that's the time that's the best time to connect to the higher power, when you can focus the best at that time, and your mind is more cooperative at that time. Your subconscious is most cooperative at that time. So I try my best to get up at that time, even for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And I do my little meditation at that time, and I go to bed at, when I get up in the morning, whatever time I get up in the morning, um, I spend first 10 minutes on the meditation again. And at minimum, these two times are my practices of meditation on a daily basis, 7 days a week. Now, there are times when I miss my 4 o'clock thing, but I never miss my morning. And my morning can be 7 o'clock in the morning, or it can be 11 o'clock in the morning, depending on the night before. And I usually start painting late evening, and I try to finish it up around 4 o'clock, the time that I go into that mode, and then basically sleep after that. So that's my thing. Now, as far as writing is concerned, let me give you an example. And I've talked to so many writers, and it's so common with this, with all of them, especially playwrights, especially poets, that when something comes to them, and that happens to me also, it comes within 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You feel like a data dump, from a hard drive somewhere in your mind. Now you have 2, 3 hours to write down all the major points and cover it up. You can expand later on, but sometimes I just don't know where that's coming from. I have absolutely no idea where that's coming from, but I know it's coming from somewhere else, not within me. And I write that down, and it happens. Now, this book that I'm talking about also started in the same manner, that I had a desire to write this book. I wanted to write this book, but I had a complete writer's block. I had no idea where to go. Then one morning that I was really in pain, I slept a lot early, taking sleeping medication, woke up around 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was like a river flowing in my mind. Like so much data was coming into my mind that it was just unbelievable. You mentioned how I selected Morocco Atlas Mountains. I have no idea. It came to me that Morocco will be the best Atlas Mountains. My knowledge base did not include the fact that Atlas Mountains also had 7 peaks in it and 7 valleys. Just
Wow.
think about that, how it came to me. I have no idea. It says, check it out. I checked it out, and boom, it did exist. So all the parts of the stories came to me. The names of the characters, the Maya and Zach, who traveled from New York, the name of the sage, Professor Ali, all these things came to me, that how I can weave the story from Athar's poem to my novel, that whole concept came to me, everything in one night, basically within 1 hour. And then from there on, I wrote the summary in 3 days, and then I spent good 4 or 5 months expanding and writing and editing and writing and editing and writing, and that whole process.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. There's a expression, people don't have thoughts, thoughts have people. And so I always think of that when you get that, like, it's from somewhere else, right?
Yes.
So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
All right. And where can our audience find out more about Whispers of the Flight and yourself?
Sure. The first, I'm going to tell you my art website, because that's my main profession, and my name is Inam, INAM. The name of the website is inamgallery.com. And if anybody has interest in looking at some, I can praise myself a little bit on your show, beautiful artwork, then you can go on the website, have a look. There are about 35 images that you can enjoy. Inamgallery.com, and has a contact form also on it to reach me. Of course, the book website is the name of the book, which is Whispers with an S, plural, whispersoftheflight.com. They can go and find the brief, my background, some images. By the way, the cover of the book is something that I don't know if you can see it or not, is something that I painted myself, and it's the birds, the original story. So I wanted to remain true to the main story, and I painted that myself. And so Whispers of the Flight is .com. The second and third website, of course, is my life coach practice website, which is elevatelife.guru. And so these are the main three websites that people can reach me at. And if they have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I'm glad we were able to connect. Sure, love to do it again when you write your next one, which I'm sure will be dumped into your mind at some point.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, and I hope that everyone listening and watching, and I know actually that they got a ton out of this episode. Thank you to our audience, as well as always. You have been tuned into the Journey to Your Best Self podcast, and we have been listening to and learning from author, spiritual guide, coach, artist, Inam Inamullah. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. We appreciate you being part of this community. For more resources, insights, and ways to connect, head over to youroneself.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Overcast. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep aligning your mind, body, and spirit, and peace, love, and self-discovery. Thank you.